Tessa Talks is a monthly podcast exploring social and environmental justice, education, creativity, and the arts. This production is brought to you by the team at Tessa Foundation, a nonprofit based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that provides humanitarian aid and social benefit to communities around the world. Each episode of this podcast will gather inspiring minds and passionate hearts to share wisdom teachings, explore pressing issues, and world events. Enjoy an intriguing, intellectually, and emotionally stimulating adventure into the voice of a spirit. Tessa Talks is dedicated to Tessa Horan, who passed on February 1st, 2006, while serving with the Peace Corps in Tonga. Her spirit lives on through the message and work of the Tessa Foundation. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to subscribe for updates on upcoming episodes. Welcome to Tessa Foundation Talks. This is our third episode. We're here with our guest, Carolina Grace. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We have KP and Dot, and I'm Magic. Today we're going to be talking about family dynamics, the purpose and significance of family in the modern age. Where does family lie in the whole strategy of creating a successful society or a successful inner and outer life for ourselves and for the ones we love? This conversation was inspired actually by Daniela coming back home from an experience with her own family that brought in some content that felt it was important that we would be able to talk about emotional intelligence and, you know, the possibility of evolving with our families.
Yeah, well, what I'd like to add about one of the things that I believe the purpose of family is creating a strong unit to raise children and to support our own personal growth in a container that feels so safe that the level of vulnerability and intimacy can be concentrated in. That's what I personally believe one of the highest expressions of family purpose can be. And when you talked about the act of inspiration, that's something that I was intending on and attempted with my family. Is something had happened between one of my siblings, and my whole family was affected by it. So I modeled through community members in where I live right now in Santa Fe, had the idea to bring this idea to hold counsel with my family so that we could all be as honest as we had the capacity to be in a vulnerable conversation about where we were at with ourselves and relating to one another. And what I found was, although it didn't go the way I expected it would or wanted it to go, it created the foundation for the understanding that we're attempting to be closer and more honest with each other so that we can get to know each other and have the safety to come to one another when we need guidance and support.
Mm-hmm. So how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 siblings, and I have a sister and a brother, and we're each 3 years apart. I am the oldest. Yeah. So, I mean, that's sort of the part of some background from my family. And I think that just from my upbringing, I think there'd be like a classical sense about it. You know, my parents were married while we were all being raised together, and my parents worked very hard. And there was a busyness among the family. And I think we're all starting to get to know each other and wanting to get to know each other on a deeper sense of personability as we've become or grow into adulthood. Because I don't really have that collection of feeling safe or wanting to have these deep conversations with family as a child or even a teenager. I just didn't feel like that was available. So
I love something that you spoke to, because when I think of family, I think of those that hold us, you know, and those that I'm a new mom, and it's such an honor to have studied attachment. And I'm a psychologist, and ever since I was a little girl, I was studying family, and I was. And we as humans are the most experience dependent for our learning. You know, we learn through relationship. We learn through connection, first with our mother and and others that hold us. And our brains are, just totally wired to learn through connection, through touch, movement, and food that our mom that we get in our early years, and that hardwiring lays down the foundation for our attachment schema that we will overlay over all of our relationships. And yes, there's neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, and through my own work, healing with attachment, I've seen how much we can heal. But so much occurs in the first couple of years that gets laid down. So how I see family, is it's really open. It's really up for a facelift, I think, because we are such diverse beings, and each one of us comes here with a mission, and oftentimes we come to heal something, and our original family, our blood family, can be a big part of that. And yet we need all different types of people, and so that the tribal way of living together and having multiple people hold the children and teaching them that many people love them, and that it's safe to be themselves, and that it's that their voice matters, and that they have something to say, and instilling that confidence, which is what the attachment connection provides. It provides a sense of, when I cry, someone comes. That if someone is attuned to you, and you make a cooing sound, and they say yes, and they affirm your voice, that what I say matters, that I'm real, that my inner world is real. And so to me, it is a lot about creating that safety for the early environment of family. But then we go on to have so many different types of family. We have soul family, we have chosen family. I know for me, I was so much, I call myself a rainbow sheep, this born into an incredible family, and I just didn't feel like I fit in. And that was such a wound. And I used to daydream of driving down the street and running into a group of people that were like me. And I searched far and wide, and I finally found this people that felt right, and it was really around, vulnerability, and and a felt sense of safety, and maybe spiritual connection, and and I found people that felt really good, and that changed my whole life. And I wish that for everyone, and I love my blood family, and I wish that for them too. It's like we have to find our people where we feel the good. So there's lots of different faces of family, I think.
Well, that inspires me to think, especially with you discussing tribal. I was born into a tribe, a blended family, 9 children, being the middle child, wearing all kinds of hats, and always feeling like I belonged. And that really isn't necessarily a guarantee that you'll keep going like that in life, and that you'll all belong to one another. Because sometimes when there's so many people, and I'm from a different generation than all of you, because you're from the same generation. I'm almost 70. So the reality is that I couldn't have made it to the place that I am now without my parents and my tribe, because my mother was a yogini, and she was a little bit ahead of her time and doing things that were so offbeat that our neighbors thought, they used to call us beatniks or bohemians. And later on I learned that word bohemian means not so much as artistic, wonderful family, but more like dysfunctional. But we functioned well because we were musicians and artists and dancers, and that belonging really, I think, propelled me into a place where I have a sense of security deep inside. However, there were so many of us, and I wasn't sure if I was in charge or I was the Cinderella, or if I was really the person who was marching ahead with the ideas. And then later on, I was like, all these people that I knew so well, I don't have a relationship with anymore. It doesn't mean because I don't like them. It's just that we there were so many of us. We spread in different directions, and some of my family, I have a couple of brothers who died, and then all of a sudden I have my own family, and I think, oh yeah, tribal. I can be the queen and control everything that these children do, so that they'll stay attached to one another. And that was my goal, is I want them to have that attachment later on in their lives so that they can have this this feeling of synchronicity and solidarity and yet community. And so it's so fascinating that we all come from sort of a different arena and a different agenda, but we figure out how to make it through. And the most important thing for me was understanding the science of people, and that's what I liked about being in a large family. It took me into psychology, into art, and seeing that, oh yeah, what can we do to basically make things better for ourselves and other people, and how can we be in charge of people so that they don't feel like they're being controlled. So I'm just curious about, where you're all going to go, because you're really part of the modern families. And emotional competency is the most important talking stick I think we have. And we use those words, emotional intelligence and also intimacy, which doesn't mean anything. I used to think intimacy was about having good sex, but what it really is good communication.
Yeah, and I remember as I was really getting in deep to my own healing and learning about attachment and seeing that my relationships weren't going the way I wanted them to go, and I was really working in my own healing on that. And I found something that I find so romantic, which is that in the neuroscience of attachment and of connection and of relationship, the most amount of neural firing and healing happens through repair. And that just makes me so excited now as a mom, because we were just talking before we started that, you do your best, and you, but perfection is not human, that's not real, but what is real is that whenever, the most amount of intimacy in terms of neural connection occurs through when someone is vulnerable and says, hey, you know what, yesterday I didn't get it right, and I want to acknowledge that and the impact. And there's this honest communication about it where, the person can be like, well, thank you, yeah, it hurt my feelings, and they're, and they can have this healing repair. And that is actually where intimacy and deeper attachment gets created. And that's also, so as a therapist, we can heal each other through each relationship. We can have a repairing experience with someone who is like a mother figure, and they can see you in a way that you've always needed to be seen. And it can literally create a whole new experience of yourself through that meeting. And so that, is also something I wanted to just name, is that we can have so many different mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and abuelas, grandmothers along the way.
Yeah, would you share some of these tools? You have these wonderful acronyms for...
Oh, yeah.
Basically, some of them are addressing the opportunities for repair, right? And some of them are kind of guidelines for how we can encourage more vulnerability with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That they can be of benefit to everybody, really.
Yeah. Well, one that I just love is we go through these experiences, right? And we have this inner world, right? And if you can share it, if you could share it with another, you literally take it outside of your body and you can do something about it. And with that one, if it's shareable, it's bearable. Mm-hmm. And when you're naming it, you can tame it. You can walk through it. Even if
Like
you can just
naming
say,
your
I am
hurt,
I feel so much shame right now. I want to wither and never be seen again, right? Literally, what happens to shame? It alchemizes, because shame makes us want to hide. And if we can literally bring, even just to name it out of our voice, we are walking through it. We are claiming it. So those were two.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that I've heard you say. It's like, I forget how it starts, but then it ends with repair. Like, it's like you go through something and then you repair. It's 2 words. It's something, especially like when it's turbulent times, you like break down, breakthrough, break down and breakthrough.
Breakdown.
There we go. That one. I love that one. And when you were talking about the naming to taming, actually brought me to think and visualize when something is held inside because it doesn't feel worth sharing, but when you speak to it, it can be tamed. The things that I've experienced before that weren't willing to share at the time were actually very isolating in my experience, because I just felt like I started deeming myself as bad, or that I am a bad being. But once I started developing the awareness and desire to speak about it and build the community really that could sustain and was available for that type of conversation, especially Christina, KP, Carolina, and Michael, honestly, all 3 of you have created that availability for me and that trust that I need for those type of conversations. But it literally dissipates, it dissolves the feelings of isolation. So that's another thing too about family. I think like feeling included, like a part of something, like almost gives more meaning for me. And I love what you're bringing in about how family can be all types. It's not necessarily just reduced to our blood family, but our chosen family, our friends, the parts of our community. I literally feel like there's more to life. There's like an up level of purpose, of my fulfillment in the world, when I am consciously claiming and acknowledging that I am a part of a family. Like there's something I look forward to creating together. And then we share these experiences together and we get to talk about them later. It's something that, in a way, we create different parts of the web of the kaleidoscope of one experience, and then maybe down the road when we start speaking about it again, one of us holds the memory bank and brings us back to sharing it. So I really do feel,
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's inspirational for me because of being older and some of the acronyms that we used to use, like everybody uses that colloquialism. How do you feel? What's going on? Oh, I'm fine. And then I learned later on, fine is fragile, insecure, neurotic, emotional, or, ADHD, which somehow integrates into our systems now because of the pollution and the pesticides and some of the things that we're exposed to. And I actually have a child who is ADHD, and he used to be so nervous about, I'm ADHD, and I go, well, that's just attention dialed into a higher dimension, so that they can really feel like, hey, I mean, do we really, these labels, do they necessarily mean something other than extending ourselves to this beautiful word, which I love that you're using in this day and age, is repair. We didn't have that word in psychology earlier. We didn't use it so freely so that we could see repairing is something that's natural, and that every one of us has a place where we can extend ourselves and shift and change so that we feel repaired.
Yeah.
So we'd like to invite you viewers to inquire within yourselves, within your own families, how can you create the space to embrace more vulnerability between those that you care about, and also to create the opportunities for greater repair. It's a new moon. I set my intention last night to presence myself in greater attention to those that I love and those that I care for in the full presence, and giving that presence undistracted. That is the invitation to vulnerability. I think we each have our part in inquiring in our own fields where we can be more present with the family. I hope that what we've started to tap into in this podcast is something of value for you to see that family is a vehicle for our highest evolution, maturing our communication skills. And that is the mission of the Tessa Foundation here. It also is to empower this greater communication amongst the web of life. And so if you'd please share your comments in our comment section below, how you're inviting more vulnerability and space for repair in your own lives, in your families, in your own hearts. And let's continue this conversation. Reach out to us at the Tessa Foundation with other ideas you'd like us to address in this podcast. Before we sign off, are there any closing remarks? We thank you so much, Carolina Grace, for joining us. Can you share with folks how, if they might want to engage more with you, how that could happen?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Carolina Grace, and I'm a somatic therapist, and I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but I am available online at Cara Lorenzo on Instagram and thereturncounseling.com. And thank you so much. It's such an honor. And yeah, I one more. Can I speak to one more thing?
Of course.
It's amazing the power each one of us holds, and who we can be for each other with that deeper presence, with the way that we can see someone in a way that they haven't seen themselves, and that felt sense of belonging that the child in all of us needs. It's always there, and we can always create a way of welcoming people with kindness and with a greeting that affirms their light, and let them know that they belong. And so we're really quite powerful in this way.
And we have to remember, everybody is somebody, and that's important. So thank you so much. We bow to you for listening to us, for caring, for being proactive in your own self-repair.
Blessings.